to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Hope you're having a pretty decent sort of a day. Don't know where you've been today. Maybe it's been persistently precipitating. It has been around here, on, off, on, off. When it's on, it's really on. When it's off, it's just, well, damp. And I believe it's pretty much the same along the eastern seaboard. We're expecting a lot more rain over the next couple of days. I did hear a weather report of somewhere between 40 and 120 millimeters, depending on whereabouts you are. So if that's somewhere where you are, batten down the hatches or clean out the drains, whatever you got to do, because there's a bit of water coming our way before the end of this week, apparently. It'll clean up over the weekend and start to fine up. That just means the jets must be running out of fuel. God, some of the striping that's been going on in the skies of southeast Queensland, and I believe most other parts of Australia, particularly in New South Wales and Western Queensland, Northern Territory, has been pretty horrendous lately. A lot of people have been sending in photos, and they're not even trying to hide this anymore. I mean, there are still people out there who will argue contrail versus chemtrail, but when you see the two working in real time, side by side against each other, you certainly realize which is which very, very quickly. Or you do if you have a inquiring mind, if you're able to discern, if you're able to raise your level of frequency so that rather than just nodding your head and saying, oh, yes, I accept the programming, you start to push back against it a little bit. And that's in part what's going to form a bit of, a fair bit of tonight's show. You've seen me put this up before. Actually, before I get into it, I better say hello to a few people. I'm getting a bit rude of me, isn't it? First in the house tonight. Let me have a bit of a look. I better just make sure you can all hear me. Yes, constant rain in Tweed Head, so looks like Gail's hearing me. My mum's down that way. She says it's been raining pretty solid down her way, so I imagine it's all the way down through northern New South Wales. I hope the donkey sanctuary is copping a bit more rain because they need to fill up the dams and they need to get some new grass growing because those donkeys, over 100 of them, still require a bit of a feed. Hello, Aussie Sue. God love you. Thank you. Not first in the room tonight, but certainly our queen when it comes to making sure people give us that thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe if you can, folks. We really do need it. First in the house tonight, the lovely Deb Shippard. Lovely to have you in, as always. And Daniel only just missed her by, as it turns out, 14 minutes or so. 9 minutes or so. But good try, mate. You'll try to make it through. Something else is clashing with us tonight. Well, at least we're your priority. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate you in Canberra tonight. I hope you're keeping bloody warm, my friend. Gomez, hope you're doing all right. Life, the universe, and everything is treating you and yours in a very favourable way. Aussie Sue saying g'day. The lovely Connie. How are you, darling? I hope life is going well with you. I know you've had some recent health battles getting off the boat. Had nothing to do with seasickness, I'm absolutely sure of it. But good to hear that some of those are coming good. And I'm really sorry I missed Stu. So, well, actually, I'm not as sorry that I missed Stuart as I am as missing out on the feed that would have been had while I was visiting. But no hints. We can talk about it on Saturday when you join us for the big get-together we're having this Saturday at the Sundowner Hotel in Caboolture, I guess it's called. It's on Aerodrome Road, 8 to 14, I think it is Aerodrome Road, the Sundowner Motel, but it is right off the M1 as you are heading north or south at the Caboolture Bribie Island turnoff. There's a McDonald's there, which most people would know if you're a eater of that shit. And right beside it is the Sundowner Motel, or hotel. So we've booked a table under the name of Voice of Freedom. So somebody sent me a text today via email off their phone So all I got was a phone number, which I don't recognize, saying, we've booked lunch for Saturday, or we've booked to come on Saturday, or whatever. And that's great. I don't know who that is, but looking forward to seeing you. But just you don't have to book your own table. Just tell them you're with the Voice of Freedom mob, and that table will grow as required, I hope. We'll see. If we've got to eat in shifts, then that's what we'll do. But I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible that can travel up. And Connie and Alan will be joining us. I can't wait to see them. She gives great cuddle, and Alan's not bad at it either, if just between you, me, and the gatepost. Big Bear's coming along. Clayton will be there. And, of course, the star of it all at the moment, I nearly said something awful. Greg who I haven't heard from today, first time in a long time. So I hope he's doing all right, and not sure if he's in the chat yet, but he is our guest of honor that wonderful day. And I hope that Margie Sedman will be joining us as well. Margie sent me a message today. Don't know where my phone is. I'd read it word for word, but I think I told you yesterday that after watching our show on Friday night, it dawned on her that her dad had been quite ill in his latter years and had been using a hyperbaric chamber, and they'd packed it away after he passed, and she hadn't given it another thought. However, after hearing the discussion last Friday night about hyperbaric chambers and what sort of healing properties they can have, this has fired her up, and magnificently so. Now, Margie's lucky enough to live fairly close to Noosa, and there is a facility in Noosa that offers hyperbaric oxygen therapy just to the average Joe. You can ring up and say, can I have a go? And they'll say, yeah, absolutely. So she thought, rather than plunging straight back into her own unit without any sort of knowledge, forethought, or training, she might actually go to the professionals and let them have a go. And I think she said the price there is about $90 an hour, which is much cheaper than anything I have seen in Victoria. For instance, I was looking down there recently for a friend, and that was more like $350 an hour. And that was in Melbourne, admittedly. I don't know how many other hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers there are outside of Melbourne and Victoria, but certainly if someone was looking to start up a business, I wonder if you could put one in the back of a truck. Not even the back of a truck. What about a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van? You could take that around, offering treatment to people by the hour or the half day or the day. There would need to be a cost involved with it. But I wonder whether or not that's something that we could do as one of these humanitarian projects going forward. That's something I'd love to do, to be honest, to be able to take something like that around. And it just leads off other ideas that I've had and spoken to people about. Now, I have a very dear friend. He may not think he is a dear friend to me, but he is. I don't treat him as a dear friend because, well, I'll be honest, because he's a dentist. I'm terrified of them. But he is a dear friend and a bloody good musician, can I just point out. Now, he works for a group that has a number of dental I don't know, what do you call them, surgeries around Brisbane, and he sort of goes between them and helps people out. They are very reasonable in cost as far as dentistry goes, but he also understands that, it's a bit nasty. I've wanted to get something together for the people, for dentists, if it couldn't be free, then at a very, very reduced cost, and a mobile facility. I remember that something like this was available for kids in schools. It probably still is, but it's not available for adults anymore. And even if it was a voluntary contribution that you made to have somebody check over your teeth professionally and give you some advice or some help, or just to pull out a tooth. Now, and I am a good example of this. I have 2 broken teeth in my head. Now, they're broken off basically to the gum. So they're basically just 2 roots, dead roots, stuck in one upper, one lower. I don't particularly want to go and pay $300 and whatever it is to get a tooth extracted when I've only got half a tooth in each socket. not even half a tooth in some cases. And I'm not getting any pain out of them. I'm not, you brush, you do what you do. But they're not really hurting me. And therefore, the idea of spending that money on my teeth is probably not high on my list of priorities, whereas it should be. Cost shouldn't be the problem. We all should be able to get dental care, health care, as required, without it costing, well, thousands or indeed tens of thousands of dollars. I would love, if ever there is this great reset, and my Zim note, which apparently can only be used because it's 100 million Zim or whatever it turns out to be, can only be used for humanitarian sort of things, then I want to do that. I want to offer a mobile health facility or a number of mobile health facilities, or bugger that, offer permanent healthcare facilities where people can go and get their teeth fixed and not have it cost tens of thousands of dollars. It can be done. I understand there is a cost to dentistry, and certainly if you're sculpting teeth and doing all that sort of stuff, there's got to be something to do with that. But at some point in the not too distant future, they're going to start 3D printing these things out of titanium, or I don't know, something akin to porcelain, something tough, something hard, probably something plastic that isn't toxic and will do the job. But until that time, that's the kind of thing I'd like to do. I would like to, have a property where abused people, well, I guess women for the most part, but women, children, and more particularly women who are too scared to leave a relationship with the kids because of their animals. They are fearful of what this partner might do to their animals. There's plenty of evidence that dickheads do horrible things to animals when their partners leave them. I want a property that I could have those people on. They could have their own little house and something they can live in for a little while. Nothing permanent, just until we can get them sorted out, get them some help, get them the right services, and get them into a system that gives them safe, secure housing with a way that they can move forward with their lives with as little impact as possible on themselves, their children, and their animals. And that doesn't matter whether your pet is a mouse or a horse. I don't care. That's the kind of a place I would like. So it would need to have some acreage about it all. And you guys can all live around that end of it, and I'll just live in this bit over here, and leave me alone. I'll do my shows. It'll all be great. We'll have a fun time together. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit tonight. I wasn't going to talk about any of this. Deb, yes, we talked about Dave last night. Has he seen the light, though? I mean, he's pretty brave to come out and admit that he voted for Albo and co, but he's the only one I'm aware of that's actually come out and done it. Nobody I've never heard of anybody who's actually said, oh, yes, I voted for them. It's the same when Julia Gillard was up. Nobody ever voted for her, but, oh, yeah, she was in. Weird. You had a nice yarn with the policeman at the MCG last night. Don't think he was real impressed with the Avita person in Victoria. Well, the police, particularly in Victoria, have a great deal to answer for, and I hope in the not too distant future we will start seeing some mea culpas from them. We're going to need them going forward, probably less than they think we're going to need them, but as it is, we'll see how it goes. Oops. Wayno, have a very special guest singer. Have to learn how to line dance. I gather this is for the 27th of June, the big get-together that we're having at Wayno's place, the Stony Creek Bush Camp Caravan Park in Wilmington, South Australia. 27th of June, that's the plan. As many of us can get there as possible. That would be absolutely awesome. Look forward to seeing you there. And I don't know if Chaos, that was meant for that, but I hope it is. Look forward to seeing you there. I know nothing about line dancing, but I could be convinced to potentially learn it. I'm not the world's biggest country or Western music fan, but this country rock stuff is sort of growing on me a bit. But I'm really looking forward to getting over there. And it looks like Tony's looking forward to getting there too. I know Vince and I have spoken about it, and he's keen. Well, I think he's working behind the scenes on a few other bits and pieces. Tim Dwyer, who I was speaking to today, lovely man, and I think Timmy will be coming up. And one of the things I'm going to be discussing here shortly will touch on something that Tim's working on as well. Yeah, anyway, there's a few interesting things coming up. G'day, Ian. G'day, John. Lady Rider Rose is in the house. Lovely to have you here. I think What That has made it. It's in the house. Very good. Nice to have you, brother. All right. So many people, so many hellos. So consider yourself helloed, if I may. And I'm going to skip right down to the very bottom because I've got to change screens. Actually, what I will do is I will put you on a different screen for a moment, so I might be able to keep a bit of track of what you guys are saying while I go into my first little picture. Now, this picture right here is a picture. Oops, that's not working. Let me put that one there. Self-explanatory. Now, I've put this up before. I've created a few of these myself. Australia does not need to buy any food from overseas. Australia just needs to back our Australian farmers. But how much is a farm worth? Well, in America, it appears a bit more than $26 million for a bit over 2 acres. Yep, 2.080 acres, or about 3.25 square miles of land. Now, why was this lady in Maysville offered such an exorbitant amount of money? Well, it was because they want to put a data center on that land. Now, they knocked back over $26 million from this big data company because they like the idea of supplying food to the nation. They are generational farmers. They've been on the land for however long, but generations, and they like farming. They like being a staple of the American farming industry that feeds Americans. Just like Australian farmers feel exactly the same way about our or their, if you like, ability to feed our nation. And not just us. Australian farmers have the ability to feed a lot more than just Australia. A lot more. But, as we see at the moment, they're being forced, coerced, I guess is the best way to explain it, coerced, into taking deals with big corporations that will negatively impact their ability to be able to produce the food that we require in this nation and the export dollars that they can generate through the excess grains, that particular, that we can produce. Why are those people taking the money? Well, because farming's bloody hard. Okay, and if somebody came on and offered you 26 point whatever million dollars for your 2 acres of land, would you take it? I ask you that question because what happens when these data centers, and they already are coming to Australia, they're already being built in places like the Sunshine Coast and Melbourne, out of Melbourne, those sorts of places. But the demand for them is only growing, and the scale of them is only getting bigger. So how do we, well, other than pushing back, but I don't think we're capable of pushing back against this data age at the moment. That's a whole other story. But maybe we can make it work for us, because rather than having these farmers, these producers of the Australian food, the product that feeds our nation and helps feed many other nations. It's not just grains, it's lamb, beef, the kind of things that we export. And we don't export much these days, but particularly livestock exports used to be extremely profitable for us. Now we've had all of that more or less taken away from us for a variety of different reasons. And now we're having things like multi-million-dollar data centers inflicted on us. Well, let's put them to good use, shall we? I propose that the data center companies, the companies like Palantir, fund something like the Bradfield Project, not the Redfield Project as it's got written up here. And you might point out that Tenterfield, or Tennant Creek rather, is nowhere near where the AI has put it. I have recognized that too, but I didn't have time to redo it all. You get the gist of what I've put forward here, though. We can, by utilizing Far North Queensland's catchment, and that is a phenomenal amount of water that already either gets flushed out to sea, or many, many inland communities get cut off for weeks to months at a time as these floodwaters make their way south into the centre of Australia, where they just get evaporated over time. So I asked the AI to start creating what it thought would be the best places to put data centres with a huge demand for water, because they need to be cooled, these data centers, and they need a huge amount of water to do that. Using all the wasted water that comes out of Far North Queensland, where would be the optimal positions to place these data centers, and how would we do it? Well, I think companies like Palantir should be made to fund projects just like this, because the money that they make out of the data that we give them, and as of right now, we give them the data for nothing. Every time you write your email address down or you provide a phone number and then you start getting phone calls or junk emails, your data, your details have been taken and sold. Someone, somewhere, has made a profit on it. And the thing about your data and your details, they are the gift that just keeps on giving. Because if I capture all your data and I'm able to market to you and sell things to you, and then for whatever reason another company approaches me and says, "Oh, Carl, can you get Vince to send us all of your market reach, all of your contacts, all of your database? We're going to add it to all of our database, and we're going to give you a little slice of that. We're just going to, be able to market to everybody. Then won't that be a happy coincidence? Yada yada yada." And there'll be plenty of people who would take that offer. But I want to be paid $1 for every time my data is used, every instance of my data is used. It might be that I want to be paid more than $1. I've not really done the maths. I've only just sort of started thinking about this afternoon. But I would think that in a day, and I based this just off the amount of junk mail I get in one email address, and I've got 4 or 5 email addresses, but just the amount of junk mail that I get in one, unsolicited, stuff I've never signed up for, they've just gleaned it off, whatever database they have bought. And then they'll sell that database again once they've added to it. So my data gets resold again. And because it's been expanded upon, they've got more data points on me and everybody else they've gathered. That becomes more valuable when they on sell it. Then I want $1 for every time my data is used, whether that be in a calculation to say, oh, well, this block of, 60-year-old blokes want to do things this way, or they like the color blue more than they like the color red, or they like, orange instead of apple and coffee instead of tea. Whatever data breakdown point they have on me, I want to be paid $1. I don't want to be paid $1 every month, because they use it every month. My data points grow every month. The things I do, the things I like, the things I look at, the things I interact with change every month. So I want $1 every month for the historical access that they've given or been getting. And I want $1 for every new thing that they pick up every month, every new data point that they add. Now, wouldn't that be a great way of funding yourself instead of having to rely on government handouts? This would, in effect, I believe, given the amount of data most people have already handed over unwittingly, and in other cases unwillingly, there is more than enough data points at $1, maybe $2 each, to have you live a very comfortable life and have a very comfortable living wage just out of the data they glean from you and what you do in your life. Now, they're making money out of it, and they're making billions, hundreds of billions of dollars out of it. Why aren't we? I mean, I'm all for getting our share of the gas revenue. I mean, go punter, right up for that. I believe we should be getting a share of it. Should that go into a sovereign wealth fund? Well, yes, if you can trust the government's going forward, not to rape and pillage it, but to put it to good use, maybe to help things like, this project, which, might help. Just think of the power, the opportunities that would be able to be brought to Australians if we could turn all of the energy generated by this massive amount of water flooding south every year. Haven't even begun to talk about the Channel Country yet. That's the stuff that comes out of, the Northern Territory. God, will you look at the way this thing's done the map of where South Australia is and where Northern Queensland is? I'm surprised it even looks like Australia. There you go. That's AI for you too. Draw a map of Australia that, anyway. AI. However, it does put together reasonably good numbers, and the figures about water volumes and what sort of a future we can build. Can you imagine the communities that could be built along these channel lines, these water tunnels, these water channels? Now, these are communities that would need to be built by qualified people. And we get back to something I've mentioned on this program before, and something I believe would be extremely useful. And that is using our immigration program to get skilled workers and unskilled workers into this country. The problem is, for the unskilled workers, is that they're not going to be given a 3-bedroom house in the outskirts of Sydney or Melbourne. They're not going to be given priority this, priority that, or priority any other friggin' thing. They would need to come to this country and prove that they want to be part of it. They want to help build our nation into what we can be in the future, which I believe can be a global leader, not just in technology and services, but in humanities. Australians have the best sense of humour. I believe we are among the best when it comes to animal love and care and empathy for other human beings without being too gullible. There are plenty of civilizations on this planet, many of whom are now making homes here in Australia, where empathy is nothing. It's not something they've ever had to consider or deal with, where being honest is something you say you are, but, if there is an opportunity to make $1 and rip somebody off, then you'll take that opportunity. These are not the decisions, the wise choices that humanity needs to make. But we're happy to have all comers, because if we can put them into something like a project like this, where they have to go to work, they're going to live in the bush, They're going to learn a skill. Maybe they come with skills. Maybe they come as doctors. Well, we're going to need doctors out there to help the people who are building the infrastructure for this. So if you and your family are prepared to go out and live on the road for 2 years, for 4 years, for 5 years, then I think welcome to Australia, and look at the new trade you can build. Your children will learn English, your family will learn English, and you will learn the Australian culture along the way. At some point during this journey, there will be the opportunity to get on a plane and fly to Melbourne or to Brisbane or to Sydney or to wherever else in the country you want to go and have a holiday, to go and check out which part of Australia you will eventually quite likely like to settle in. You may eventually decide to settle into one of these cities, and they will be cities that will be built to help with the infrastructure required to build a project like this. You might decide that's where you want to be, but you're going to need to put some years into it, maybe 2, maybe 5, maybe 10, before you get citizenship. Or maybe you get citizenship immediately that you join this project. But as a very good dear friend has told me today, maybe you need to be on probation for 10 years. Maybe your citizenship is on probation for 10 years. Maybe that's the way it should be now for every immigrant, every new citizen. Yes, we're happy to make you a citizen, but your citizenship is probationary. That means you step out of line, you become a criminal, you start ripping the people off. You're not Australian citizen material, and therefore you get no access to the benefits that being an Australian will bring you. So I think there is a huge opportunity here for people going forward to create businesses, to create huge, successful businesses, and to create a future for all Australians that at the moment the Labor Party have absolutely no hope of creating in any way, shape or form. I mean, here is your Prime Minister. Now, this fool has 59 staffers. He has more people working for him than any other Prime Minister in history. And that's saying something, because I would have thought Malcolm Turnbull, who never could get patted on the back enough, would have employed more. But there you go. Albo has 59 of them at $13.9 million a year in combined salaries. Everyone from speechwriters to clothing advisors, and somebody who is trying to help him with his speech impediment. Then there's this criticism that's being levelled against him, who's been helping out the Australia-India Business Council again today, and yesterday, and a lot of people are complaining that he has just sold us out. You know, he's gushing about the Indian community and all the great things that it brings to modern Australia. I have asked around. I can't really put too much forward on this for a variety of reasons, but I've had a lot of dealings with Indians, in particularly the limousine transport business, and I've yet to have one that's been good, if I'm honest, an interaction. Some of them have been quite aggressive. Most of them have had to do with just blatant rip-offs. And I've spoken about this before too. When you come from a country of 1 billion plus people, if everybody is ripping everybody off just a little bit, then nobody really minds, because everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. Now, when cultures like that come to Australia, and there are a number of cultures who have that sort of thing, oh, if I can get a little bit more out of you this way. This is why dickering or what do they call it when you're back and forthing for a price? Anyway, That's why that's so popular in other parts of the world. And Australians are bloody useless at it, negotiating that price down. We usually come at it very aggressively because Australians are fair-minded people. All right? We are expecting to pay a fair price for goods and services. Now, if you go in to negotiate your price and it might be a bit higher than what others might be expecting, and the service delivery is below quality of what you would be expecting for paying a premium price, then in Australia, that usually results in a negative review or a pretty short business operation if you're the one doing it. In other countries, it just means that they pass the loss that they made on that job off on the next person that comes to them. And it doesn't work that way here in Australia. And unfortunately now we are nearly at a tipping point with certain cultures that have come into this country where we are now running parallel economies, or at least parallel ways of using the economy. Because within certain large particular groups, that culture, that rip-off culture continues because everybody's used to it. And when it does poke its head out and catches, a Westerner, because a cab ride that should have taken $25 out of your pocket will end up taking $105 out of your pocket, you get a little upset. But what goes around comes around in other parts of the world. We need to fix that. And I believe that through a system like, this, we could fix that, because you could be trained, you could be educated, you could be learned about Australians and how they react to those sorts of things. By the time you finish your, let's call it 5 years, working on the project, you will have picked an Australian footy team to follow and barrack for wholeheartedly. You'll understand the game. You won't be caring too much about what's going on back home, because there will be too much excitement, too many great opportunities, too much for you to look forward to in what you are helped build to build in this country. And that is my genuine belief of what we can together unite and bring forward. But to do that, we need Albo. And right now, he's not really talking to us. He's welcoming back the new ISIS brides who arrived late this afternoon in Sydney and Melbourne. Another 6 women, and I don't know how many children. I think it's 8 have turned up. So Albo's busy denying any help whatsoever. But in the background, of course, he and the Burke, Tony Burke, will be rubbing their hands together. There's a whole heap of new votes they've brought back into Australia, and they're going to need them. They're going to need them. Here's a bit of a gander at what electricity prices have done. Not just electricity prices, up 37%. Bread is up 21%. Cakes and biscuits up 25%. 40% up for domestic travel. If you've been on a plane flight recently, you'll know how much that hurts. Eggs, 37%. I bought eggs the other day. Could not believe they wanted $12. It was $1 an egg. Unbelievable. Gas prices, 42% up. Now, that's LPG. That's not petrol. We haven't talked about petrol. Cheese, 20%, and 31% for the snacks that you'd normally pick up at the supermarket or at the servo. Labor has been very, very good at jacking up the prices to a point where everybody is doing it tough. And because of AI, many Australians are losing their job. In fact, it was disclosed today in Senate estimates, and you can go and read the headlines at various different places now, that Australia, according to the ATO, is sneaking up on what will be catastrophic unemployment levels in the next couple of years. And why are we saying and doing that? In part because AI is taking over. These morons who've been so happily advancing the wonders of AI technology have wittingly or unwittingly been teaching their own replacements how to do their jobs. And now they're shocked that they're being sacked hand over fist. And there will be a number of industries that are just going to fade out because of it, enhancing greater job losses as well. The next 18 months or so proving to be pretty nasty. But Labor have got their hand out again. If you're a Labor Party supporter, they want $27 off you. 99% of people won't contribute. I would suggest if they can get 99% of people contributing, they've done pretty friggin' well. If they can get 1% of the nation contributing to this, well, they're the diehard supporters. But if you belong to a union like the CFMEU or, well, just about any other union, you are going to be stung with this real soon. Another $27. Oh, just give us 27. It's a one-off. It'll only come out of your pay once. But it's going to help the brothers. We're going to unite. We're going to get the communists back to power again. Well, at the moment, they don't need to get back to power because in the Senate, we can see that they are powerful enough. They have their 30 seats. And then, of course, they have the little green bastards. The Green Party, the Australian Greens that side with them almost 100% of the time and in 100% of cases. That gives them 40 votes in a 76-seat Senate. So if we were to flick around and have a look at what is currently happening in the Australian Senate, if we were able in some way to force an election, how would we do it? Well, there is a section of the Constitution available to us. It's called Section 57 of the Australian Constitution. It's been used a number of times previously. It is to block supply. Now, blocking of supply is done a couple of different ways, but usually, I'll take that graphic down for a minute, usually it's done when a bill comes up from the House and it is pushed back by the Senate. It has to wait at least 3 months before it's put forward again, and then it will get rejected, or if it does get rejected again from the Senate, that is an opportunity to call a block of supply. Usually there's some toing and froing. The only time it's really been seen all the way through is 1975, of course, when Gough Whitlam was ousted by the Governor-General. Now, we don't, as people, the people of Australia, get to introduce bills. We do get to, however, introduce and vote for the people who are meant to represent us at that place in Canberra. And right now, about 40 of the people in the Senate are representing Labor and the Greens. And I'm not saying for one moment, in fact, I would say they're doing exactly the opposite. They're not representing the people that support Labor or the Greens here. They are supporting a one world government, a UN-funded policy initiative, and very little else. Now, on the other side, you see 33 votes acting as a bloc. That's the Liberal Party with 27, One Nation with 4, and a couple of independents. Now, One Nation and, I beg your pardon, the Liberal Party and the National Party joining together in that example. Now, the independents, I believe, potentially could vote to force a block of supply. But then we would need to also convince the crossbenchers, Jackie Lambie, who I suppose is a tad dodgy, but she could, I think, be convinced to support a motion to block supply. Then there is Ralph Babbitt from the United Australia Party, who I also believe could be convinced to go for this motion. And then, of course, there is the Fatima Payman, I think her name is, from Australia's Voice, who will at all times and always support the Labor and Greens in everything that she does. I believe there are some Labor Party people, though, who could be convinced that in light of the fact that the people of this country, the people of this great nation, Australia, have demonstrably lost faith in the Australian Labor Party and their governance of this nation. Now, the people do not need to let this mess of a government continue for another couple of years. There are triggers, and this could be the way to do it through Section 57. Now, that's going to require a lot of work. Will that work be something you are willing to put in? Because it will require work that you need to put in. But that work could be as little as writing a letter to your senator. And it might say something like this. Dear Senator, I write to you as an Australian citizen deeply concerned about the current direction of the federal government and the growing discontent between Canberra and everyday Australians. Across the country, many citizens are expressing frustration over the cost of living crisis, housing affordability, government spending, transparency, and what they perceive to be repeated failures of accountability from senior ministers and the Prime Minister. Whether through public protests, community forums, independent media, or rising support for alternative political movements, there is a clear and growing sense that confidence in the government is deteriorating. Australia's constitution provides lawful democratic mechanisms to address periods of serious political deadlock and loss of public confidence. Section 57 exists precisely because this Senate is intended to act as a house of review, a house of restraint when necessary. I respectfully urge you and your colleagues to seriously consider using the powers available to the Senate, including opposing or delaying legislation and, where constitutionally appropriate, considering the blocking of supply. Particularly if you believe the government no longer commands the confidence of the Australian people. This is not a request for disorder or instability. This is a call for constitutional accountability. And I've lost my place. A call for constitutional accountability, democratic responsibility, and a return to genuine public representation. Genuine representation. If the government remains confident in its direction and record, then it should have absolutely no fear in returning to the Australian people at an election and seeking a mandate renewed for everything they've come up with in the last budget, amongst other things. Australians expect senators to represent their states and territories with integrity, independence and courage, particularly during periods of national concern. Regardless of party affiliation, I ask that you place the long-term interests of the nation and your constituents above party discipline and political convenience. History remembers those who stand for principle during difficult times. Thank you for your service to Australia and for taking the concerns of your constituents seriously. Respectfully, you and me. What do you think about that? Is that something that is worth sending off? Is that something that we should be sending to every Australian senator? And should we start considering a concerted email, a concerted social media campaign to get supply blocked? And if we should start that, should we start that now? I know that One Nation has a huge swell of support going for it at the moment, and so rightfully so. But are they ready? If we were able to force this, let's say, and to force under the current Section 57 laws, using the blocking of supply laws necessarily have to have a 3-month gap between the legislation that is put up versus being kicked back. So this is something that could take six months, let's say, to do. Maybe it took 12 months, and then we're only another 8 to 12 months out from an election. Is it worth doing? Is it worth trying to save the country this soon? Is it worth pushing the button now and being able to force a few senators to come over? Right now, I don't think the Liberal Party, the National Party, or One Nation would support something like this going forward. I wish they would. I think Senator Babbitt would probably put something like this forward. I don't think he's got too many friends anywhere in that place, except friends of the people. But would it be to our detriment? Do we think One Nation are ready to either be in opposition or to govern? Because given the polls last weekend, they would be in opposition. They could potentially, if the Liberal Party were to lift their game a little bit and start targeting Labor and Greens instead of Nationals and One Nation seats, if the Liberal Party and the National Party were able to do a little bit of the heavy lifting and take a few of those Labor Party seats back off them, things might change. But they're focused on Victoria, and that election is coming up in November. And I heard Pauline say over the weekend that there are 1,100 nominations for people to run as One Nation candidates in the Victorian state elections. I think One Nation need like 40. But there are 1,100 people wanting to be part of it. And the good thing about the way One Nation are letting these candidates be chosen is that they are having public forums, and the people in those areas are the ones who are voting for them, putting them forward. It's not, One Nation are doing the backgrounding, I'm sure, and the criminal checks and all that sort of stuff. But aside from that, you've got to stand up in your local community and win the hearts and minds of we the people, who will support you being put forward as their One Nation representative in Victoria. And then in March of 2027, we have another challenge for them, which is the New South Wales state election. Now, they haven't called for nominations yet there, but you can be guaranteed they are getting them. And more will come once the Victorian election is over and done with, when the spotlight truly does fall on New South Wales. So if we were to force through the Senate a block of supply and a new election, let's call it before the end of the year or even into early next year, would we potentially be setting ourselves up for failure, or would we potentially be setting One Nation up for failure going forward because they simply are not in a position yet to perform at that level? Don't know. All things to be considered. Ben Roberts-Smith's mum, you know where he gets the bravery from. I'm not saying his dad's not brave, but his dad is a QC, or a KC as it is these days. But Mum, she has a dirt file. Oh, boy. And has she come out swinging. Now, that dirt file is on one, I call him Honourable, the Honourable Andrew Hastie from Canning. Now, Andrew Bolt on Sky TV, Sky News, whatever it is, has come out last night swinging on behalf of Andrew Hastie, saying how awful it is that Hastie has been targeted in the way he has been. Hastie has been touted as leadership material for the Liberal Party. And since a lot of detail has come out about his involvement in the initial defamation trial that Ben Roberts-Smith lost and has been roundly crucified for, a lot of questions have been raised about Mr. Hastie's involvement in the SAS. In fact, some statements have been made, and I've made them in other programs, about Mr. Hastie's selection process, where, as the story is alleged, Ben Roberts-Smith was one of his instructors, and they go through a thing called a beasting, where they are, bullied to death practically, just to see how much pressure these blokes can handle. Anyway, at the end of this, Ben Roberts-Smith's recommendation was that Andrew Hastie wasn't accepted. At the end of selection, Ben Roberts-Smith was asked, as one of the instructors, right, not as a commander, didn't get to make the decisions of whether or not Hastie was accepted or not. He was simply asked for his recommendation as an instructor on course, whether or not that candidate was suitable to join the SAS. Now, apparently Ben Roberts-Smith is alleged to have said no. But I would like to suggest, and it's merely supposition on my behalf, that Andrew Hastie has had a protected existence inside the military, protected and projected, because he was always going to become a politician. When they identified him, he needed to have some sort of background that the Conservatives would gravitate toward, and what better than in the SAS, even if he couldn't be the Ben Roberts-Smith, VC winning soldier. It is still a highly respected position just to say you were a member, or you were able to participate, that you reached that particular level. And I take nothing away from Hastie at being able to do the things that he did to qualify and become selected as a member of our esteemed SAS. However, one of the things that our SAS is also known for is their honour. And while there are two sides of the honour argument, I guess, in this case, Hastie claiming that, he was on his honour, that he had to go and tell rumours to his commanding officers. Now, there is no evidence. There are no bodies. There is no forensic detail available on any of the people alleged to be involved with Ben Roberts-Smith, or indeed, I believe, Ollie Schultz. However, that hasn't stopped them going hell for leather on it. And of course, we've found out through Senate estimates in the last couple of days that the decision to bring home the ISIS brides, the last of which got home a couple of hours ago back into Australia, so we've got them all back now, that decision took 3 weeks to make. 3 weeks. But the decision to have Ben Roberts-Smith charged with war crimes took 1 day. That's the Australian Attorney General working for us. How good is that? Anyway, Ben Roberts-Smith's mum, she's going hard and getting a lot of traction around the place, so much so that in Canning, it is highly likely that Hastie will lose his seat at the moment. The feelings that have been brought forth by the community and have been expressed from hundreds of thousands of people around this great nation, not just on what has supposedly happened with Ben Roberts-Smith, but Hastie shot himself, pardon the pun, in the foot in January when he backtracked and, came out on one day and said he was going to vote against this intrusive legislation that the Labor government wanted to bring in after the horrors of the Bondi shootings, and then, of course, proceeded to do exactly the opposite and vote for it all a day later or 2 days later, and then came out and tried to justify why he did it. That isn't the sign of a leader. That's the sign of a liar. And we have a liar in a position of the prime ministership right now. We have a liar sitting in just about every ministerial position that the Labor Party have stacked. We have liars leading the bureaucracy, and we have liars trying to get themselves elected to replace the liars that we have. That's why we need good people like you. People who don't want to do it for the money, but will do it to fix the country. People who don't want to be first aiders, but who will apply the Band-Aid, wrap the arm in bandages and move on. And we're going to be needing it in a lot more different ways. Musk has come up with this. He says, in the future, brain implants are going to give human beings Jesus-level miracles and God-like powers. Would you put a chip in your head so that you could have God-like powers? Maybe you already have. 6G is being deployed. Rapid development, early deployment phases worldwide being rolled out very quietly with limited public transparency. This represents a massive technological upgrade far beyond 5G. It raises serious concerns about enabling advanced directional energy weapons, voice-to-skull transmissions, microwave harassment, and mind-influencing systems. Cognitive liberty, your fundamental right to freedom of thought and mental autonomy, is now under direct and serious threat, part of the ongoing evolution of the mind control shite, a lot of which will have been enabled if you got the squirty thing jabbed in your arm and you're still breathing. Because a lot of that nanotechnology, and thank you to former Dr. Chris Nixon for the work that he's done with his microscopes on showing just what that technology is doing inside your blood. I'm going a little over time tonight, but I don't know if this story is real or not. I didn't get the Herald Sun. I'm not in Victoria, and I'm not prepared to pay for it. But behind the paywall, you might be able to find this story. Victoria is Australia's satanic community capital. Warwick is going to be upset. I would tend to believe that there is an element of truth to all of that. But if you are in Victoria and you happen to have a paywall exclusive, let me know whether or not that is the case. Please don't copy the link and send it to me if you are behind the paywall, because it won't allow me behind the paywall. And just a note for RACQ lovers today. RACQ were called to a Caloundra business today, to Aldi. Unfortunately, they discovered that Aldi didn't have a new bonnet, new headlights, a new bumper bar, a new grille, a new radiator support, and indeed a new radiator. So I'm not sure who's driving our RACQ vehicles these days, but good luck to them, I say. I'm going to be trying something a little new, folks, and in the next few days, I'm going to start uploading a video called For Your Consideration. It'll cover a lot of topics. But in the first series, I think it's about time we started to revisit quite a few things, but a lot of it based in common law, in natural law, in Magna Carta 1215. And in fact, we might even start explaining right from the word go again. This could be something that could be turned into a conversational show, depending on whether or not certain people want to be involved. One of those people might be Fitz, although I doubt that Fitz will come back on this show. I'd love him to, but I don't think he will, sadly. However, there are others, David, and these are important conversations that we need to have. Conversations, important learning. Knowledge is power. What you choose to do with the knowledge / power is up to you. And that gets down to choices. Now, in this life, we have a choice to make, a very big choice to make, and that is, what sort of human beings are we going to be? Now, I'm going to leave you with a recommendation to go and have a look at another YouTuber. Many of you probably already follow her. Her name is Elizabeth April, and she released a video today which I believe is a great question poser. She offers up a number of really interesting questions, and I believe she explains choice in a way that is better than I could have come up with. But she asks us to consider a number of things. The first is, what if we are just an experiment? What if we're a combination of the highest and the lowest vibrational DNAs? The highest, maybe the Palladians, maybe whoever, the lowest being the reptilians. Now, because we are a mix of both, we are meant to make a choice. That choice is to decide what frequency we are going to live in. We choose to live in a higher vibrational frequency, or we choose to live a lower vibrational frequency. And based on that choice, we unlock the DNA inside us that matches that level of vibration. Does that mean that if you started life as a low vibing type, you can't be a high one? No, that definitely does not mean that. It just means you need to work a little harder to unlock your higher vibration self. But the choice is there. And Elizabeth April explains it very, very well. To have a choice, though, we have to be free. No one can intervene with our choices. No one can disrupt. No one can manipulate us. And of course, that's all we are suffering at the moment. And that's why it's important that we learn and understand what it is to be sovereign. Just the one word, not two, sovereign. I believe that that's why corruption is being exposed at the moment. That's why we are seeing a lot of celebrities shuffle off this mortal coil. A lot of people being exposed to humiliation, public humiliation rituals. There is all this happening every day all over the world in varying different degrees. I believe some politicians are now openly trying to show us just what shit human beings they are. They are forced to. The lies, and the Albanese government is just one example of them. And this latest budget, this latest turnaround, this latest attack on wealth building and wealth protection going forward. Royalty is being exposed. I mean, that piece of work that used to be Prince Andrew, be lucky. I mean, how long before we hear of the suicide of Prince Andrew? Although it will not be his suicide, he will have died of natural causes, or he will have fallen off a horse while riding around whatever little farm they've got him hidden in Scotland at the moment, or wherever the hell he's at. What sort of stories are continuing to come out about him almost on a daily basis? And Fergie as well, who seems like she was... well, she had more than one friend with benefits. Andrew was a friend with benefits after they got divorced. Then there was the toe sucker, of course. I think he was the reason for the divorce. But P. Diddy, of course, was a friend with benefits. Having seen Sarah up close, I'm not sure exactly what benefit that would be. But one of the weirder things is that she introduced both her daughters to P. Diddy when they turned 16. There is an awful lot of horror slowly, not quietly, blatantly, openly being shown to us. The king used to have a best mate. His name was Jimmy Savile. He was one of Britain's most disgusting, perverted pedophiles. Right up until his death, an active necrophiliac. For those of you who don't know, he liked to have sex with dead people. dead girls, dead little girls, to be precise. And this was the king's best friend, who stayed with the king numerous times in the palace, at Sandringham, at Balmoral, and in these little cabins that they have hidden all over those sorts of properties. The filth is being exposed, folks. If you've got eyes to see it, ears to hear it. And I believe that there is some changes coming to the financial system too that are going to really help us all. It's going to level the playing field. It's going to allow us to make a fair, unbiased, unmanipulated choice. Because when money is no longer the significant influence in your life, when you don't have to go out and work to slave, to pay taxes, to pay the government, doesn't mean that you won't have to pay for things, but it just means that the current way of doing things has to change. Then maybe something like that letter that I read out earlier is a beginning. Maybe there's a better way of doing it. Maybe there is a new party to create to do this. I don't know. But what we should be doing is putting every one of our senators on notice that the Australian people are now awake. We are now aware that it is possible for we the people to force a block of supply. And the only way that we can do that is by withdrawing our vote for the incumbent who refuses to push that forward for us at the moment. The choice you need to make right now is whether or not it's too soon to do it. And that's a conversation I'm looking forward to having. Maybe we can talk more about this on Friday night. I look forward to that. There's one thing I'm going to leave you with. If you are planning a trip to Vivid and you're taking children, God love you, but God, look out. Vivid in Sydney. God, if there is ever a Sodom and Gomorrah in Australia, it'd have to be bloody Sydney, wouldn't it? But anyway, get a load of this.
Just a warning to parents, if you're taking your kids to Vivid, you are probably going to see this.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'll play it again for you.
Adults can choose to go to that sort of thing. Parents should be able to choose what their kids can and can't see. But when it's in a public setting like that, projected against an entire building that you can't avoid if you want to go through the whole Vivid experience, I'd say Vivid Sydney has just kind of chosen for parents.
Yep. Vivid Sydney has made the choice to expose your children to sexualized light shows. Hooray for you lot in Sydney. Goes to prove not all dickheads live on the roads, folks. Some of them are put in charge of some of the biggest festivals of this country.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!